Hey everyone, welcome. This is Jason Clemmons, Doctor of Chiropractic at the Rock Health and Wellness Center, and this is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC, coming to you live from the Rock Health and Wellness Center studios in Lubbock, Texas, and this is Wednesday, July 3rd. For all you guys out there, if you're listening to me, if hang on, if you're listening to me, hang on one second. You know, we were having trouble last night. We're having trouble again tonight. We got this same situation going on with our something is just messing up our radio station, and we've been trying to figure it out. And I don't know what's happening, and I know you guys don't care, but that's I got. It takes me just a second. I got this the third time I got kicked off in the last 5 minutes. So something bad is some bad connection. There's subluxation between my office and the radio station. And I don't know what exactly is going on, but we've got abnormal afferent information and abnormal efferent information going on at the same time. And so the whole system is not functioning properly. And that is exactly what we've been talking about for the last few nights, right? We've been talking about the subluxation and what's going on with the subluxation and the interference between the brain and the body and the brain, and how it breaks our body down. And that's exactly what is happening with my radio show. So, welcome to all you guys. If you're on social media from the 98.7 Walk by Faith, if you're coming to us with this, welcome. You guys that are with us, following us on our pages, welcome. And I hope you guys have had a great day. We've been busy this week. We only had a 3-day week, so we've been busy and just solid busy. And we're still at it tonight. So hey, I think we got a good show. Let me see if we got any chance of making a radio show out of it tonight. Nope, I can't get there on the radio show. I'm getting kicked off again. So um, we'll just keep trying it. But I don't know what to do. I know I know we're going to talk about subluxation here in just a second. Whether we get it all finished or not, it's the way it's going to go tonight. So thanks for joining us. If you're out there on social media, I hope you guys had a good day. It looks like it might get some rain here in Lubbock here in just a minute. Everybody's been talking about how hot it's been all day long, and it's when you're busy. I got to the building this morning about 7:29. Started at 7:30, and I haven't been outside all day long. So I don't know if it's hot or not. People keep telling me that it's hot out there. I think it was 100 degrees and something in Lubbock today. But I'll try this. I'll try this radio station one more time, and if we can't get it, we'll just skip it. And all the people can watch us from social media if they want to watch us from social media. Um, and there's just nothing I can do about it at the moment. We'll see what happens. Yeah, so I'm on here, and we'll see what happens. So hey, this is Jason Clemmons, Doctor of Chiropractic at the Rock Health and Wellness Center. If you guys are listening to us on 98.7 Walk by Faith or 1420 AM Lubbock Christian Nation, you guys are trying to stream us at 987radio.com. We're having technical difficulties again tonight, but I think we're on for the moment. So let me give you a quick rundown. We're going to do the show. We're going to do it. We're doing it live right now on all of our social media pages. And so if you get cut off tonight, again, because I've been cut off 3 times in the last 5 or 6 minutes, and I have no confidence that I'm going to last for very long. But if you guys if I lose you on the radio, you can go right to the Walk by Faith Facebook page, and I believe we're sharing it on that page. If you can't get it there, we're also on the Rock Health and Wellness Center's page, and we're also on Dr. Jason Clemmons on Twitter X. and we're also on YouTube at Health from the Rock. So if you've got a phone and you've got any of those social media apps, you can follow us. You can find us and you can get on the show tonight. So that's what we're going to do. And we'll just keep going right here for as long as possible with the radio station. I apologize for all the delays. I know there's some of you out there that listen to us on the radio. And so I do appreciate that. So let's get into it because I don't want to waste any more time. It's been a fun couple of shows to talk about subluxation, and we're going to finish it. We're going to just kind of continue with that tonight, and we're just going to stack on to it. And you know the part of this whole thing, I had a conversation with one of one of my new patients today, and she actually used to see my brother-in-law, Dr. Housewright, who I heard today. I got news in case you guys are following up with any of that stuff. Uh, I got news that this may be his last day. He's within a very short window of time left before he's done with this earth, and so that's a sad thing for us. We're sorry to hear that. It's a tragedy what went on with that whole thing, and getting a glioblastoma, and he's down to the end. So he's the hospice people have said that it's not going to be long now and before he's done. So every day that we do something in chiropractic is going to be somewhat of a tribute to Rick and his impact that he made on my life, because he's the one that taught me. He's the one that had this conversation, and he did what was called a half hour to health class. And he did that half hour to health class every Tuesday night, and he got all of his new patients to come to the half hour to health class, and he taught them about health. And he made this statement to me. He said he would take a pair of scissors and he would take this little spine model, which I think is his spine model. But he would take this little spine model and he'd take a pair of scissors and he would ask the question, would you let me take a pair of scissors and cut the nerve that goes from your brain to your heart? And everybody would say no. Everybody would say, no, you can't cut the nerve that goes from my brain to my heart. And I was sitting back there thinking, and I know I've said this lots of times on the show, but I was sitting back there thinking, there's actually a nerve that goes from your brain to your heart? Is that a thing? Like, isn't your cardiovascular system, your system that pumps blood throughout your body and gets oxygen to your tissues, is what does your brain have to do with that? And when we got finished, because he said a dime's weight of pressure on a spinal nerve root could decrease the amount of energy flowing through that nerve by 40%. What does that mean to you? Well, what that means is that, remember, your body is sending 3 trillion bits of information per second to your brain, and it's sending it through your nervous system. And if there's a nerve that's going to your heart or your lungs or your liver or anything else, which we know is like the vagus nerve, and we've got thoracic cage nerves that are working off those systems as well. You've got nerves going to and from your entire body. If you don't believe that, just poke yourself somewhere with something that's kind of sharp. Don't hurt yourself, but just poke yourself somewhere. Did you feel that? 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 Yep. Felt all that all the way across. Yep. Everywhere I poked myself, I felt it. If I felt it, that means that there was a nerve involved, and that means that there was a signal that was sent from the body to the brain. Yes. If you've had a spinal cord injury and you can't feel your legs, then I can poke you in the leg and you're not going to feel it. I can put vibration on the bottom of your feet. You're not going to feel it. Why are you not going to feel it? Why are you not going to feel it? Because you're losing that information that's going from your body to your brain. So if you feel it anywhere on your body, you have a nerve involved, which means you have your nervous system involved, which means If you have a subluxation, you have a dime's weight of pressure on that nerve. You could decrease the amount of energy flowing through that nerve by 40%. That was the story that he told me 24 years ago, March of 2000. I heard him say that. I got adjusted for 12 years, not knowing anything about why chiropractic worked. And then I learned that. And it was that simple. And I had a patient this week say, I don't get, he said, I hear what you're saying on, he said, I listened to your show and he said, and I hear what you say, but I don't understand what you mean. And so it's like, okay, that's fair enough. I mean, I get it. That's fair enough. And we've only got 11 years left in 2 months. 11 years and 2 months to go before you finally get it like I got it. It took me 12 years. It took me 12 years to before I finally got it. And I want to show you a picture. I want to show you a picture tonight. And see what you think. Yeah, okay. I want to show you this picture right here. This is a picture of Christopher Reeve. Christopher Reeve was Superman. Christopher Reeve was athletic. He was 6'3" and athletic. And they cast him as Superman for goodness sakes, right? They probably, I know that you probably wouldn't believe this, but if I would have tried out for Superman, I might not have gotten cast for it. I mean, I know that sounds ridiculous, but there probably is a high likelihood that they wouldn't have chosen me to be Superman, but they chose Christopher Reeve to be Superman. So they must have thought, man, this guy looks like a Superman, like 6'3", athletic, good looking Superman, right? Okay, now I know we don't need to get controversial. Don't blow up the internet because about yes, they would have chosen you as Superman, Dr. Clemmons. Yes, don't worry, don't worry about that. It's not my point. My point is that's Christopher Reeve. This bottom picture that you're looking at right there, that's Christopher Reeve with nervous system function. That's Christopher Reeve when his body could send a signal to his brain, and his brain could send a signal to his body. Okay? Now, this is Christopher Reeve. That's the same guy. That's the same guy when his body could not send a signal to his brain. That's what we're talking about right there. Look at that guy. That guy right there, the same 6'3" guy, the same athletic guy, the same stud guy, falls off a horse, breaks his neck. He no longer has the ability to communicate from his body to his brain. He didn't put a dime's weight of pressure on the spinal nerve root. He crushed that spinal nerve. He crushed his spine at C3. He crushed it right there. So what is he doing? He's sitting in a wheelchair. For you guys on the radio that you can't see that. He's sitting in a wheelchair and his head is up against the back of the thing. And what can he move? Almost nothing. He can move his jaw. He can move his eyeballs. He can't move anything below his neck. He can't move his fingers. He can't move his fingers. He's got his fingers sitting on that chair right there, and he can't move his fingers. He can't move his toes. If you poked him with the pen on his hand, he wouldn't feel it. Why would he not feel it? What is the problem with Christopher Reeve in a wheelchair? If you guys are listening to us on the radio, just Google that. Google Christopher Reeve and go to images and look at what an image of a person whose nervous system isn't working, who's lost their ability from their body to communicate to their brain. That's the ultimate subluxation right there. That's the big one. That's the one you can't partly overcome. And he didn't overcome it. And if you poke him with a pen in his hand, he's not going to feel it. And if you poke him with a pin in his knee, he's not going to feel it. What does that mean? It makes you scratch your head. It's like, what does that mean? That means that the receptor in his hand, when you poked him with the pin, the receptor that hit the nerve fired up through his arm. It fired up into his spinal cord. It went up from his spinal cord until it hit that point that was destroyed from him breaking his neck. The part of his spinal cord that got destroyed, that's where the signal stopped. It went from his hand up the nerve to his spinal cord, and then the signal stopped. And the brain never received the information. The brain never received the information that traveled from his hand to his brain. It didn't get there. It stopped at the fracture point. He didn't feel it. What do you mean? What do you mean you feel it in your head? Yes, you feel it in your head. You don't feel it in your hand. You register it in your head. Your head has a map of your body. Your brain has a map of your body. And when you touch that receptor, your brain says, oh, that receptor that's on that map, which is in my hand, now felt the poke of the pin. The brain is what makes the whole thing work. The brain is what makes it work. It's in your head, right? That's I spent my whole life telling people, no, it's not in your head. Don't worry about that. It's actually in your body. And then I'm like, no, it's actually in your head. That's where it's at. All of it. It's if you don't have it in your head, you don't feel it. It's not working. I promise you. So this is Christopher Reeve. This is Christopher Reeve after he falls and breaks his neck. Let's find that other picture that we were just looking at. We could pick any of these. Can't really see them that good in that picture. Trying to find a good portrait of him standing up. But anyway, there's Superman standing up. And there it's like, okay, there he is. There's Superman standing up right there. And then he falls off a horse, it breaks his neck. And now he can't communicate back and forth, and now it doesn't work. And he can't fire the vertebra, the nerve, he can't fire into his brain, and his brain quits working. That's the ultimate subluxation. Okay. Now, let's take it down to our level, because most of us are not walking around paralyzed, right? Most of us are just subluxated. We have a dime's weight of pressure on the spinal nerve root, a dime's weight of pressure on the spinal nerve root, or we have vertebral subluxation. The vertebra is in the wrong position. It's in the wrong movement. It's not moving properly. What did Dr. Kent say? Dr. Kent said, what did he call it? He called it the subluxation. Chiropractic subluxations are changes in the position or motion of a vertebra which may alter autonomic nervous system function. Autonomic nervous system. What my brother-in-law was saying in March of 2000, if you let me take a pair of scissors and cut the nerve that goes from your brain to your heart, what he was really saying is that your autonomic nervous system controls your heart function. It speeds it up and slows it down. And that if you interfere with the nervous system, you're going to interfere with your heart function. And let me tell you this: if you interfere with the nervous system, how it goes to your stomach, you're going to have acid reflux or irritable bowel stuff if it gets into your intestine. Like you're going to have an acid reflux problem if you've got subluxation going to your stomach. You're going to have liver problems if you've got a subluxation going to your liver. And let's also listen to this word. Let's listen to this concept. Viscerosomatic and somatovisceral. Okay, I know you don't, that might not mean anything to you. Viscera is your organ system, and your somatic nervous system is the part of your nervous system that moves your muscles. So, something that is viscerosomatic means that the organ itself is causing the muscle to spasm. You ever had a kidney stone before? All you women, you ever had a menstrual cramp before? That menstrual cramp makes your low back hurt, right? Your kidney stone gives you back pain. If you have a liver problem, you got this constant pain right there, in your right above your right rib, in your right rib cage. You can't ever get that to go. Those are viscerosomatic responses because the organ itself is not functioning properly, which now, look at this little model. It goes back. You'll see that this little nerve root, if you can tell, this little nerve root right here, when as it feeds back to the spine, it has a fork in the road. It has a fork in the road coming from the brain to the body. But that little fork in the road, there's part of this information that's coming to the front side of the body, going to the organs. And it's also part of this information is coming out the backside to the muscles on the backside. And so, and part of this information is coming, like if it's a lumbar spine, it's coming down the leg. But if it's a thoracic spine, we've got different nerve distribution. So you can have a viscerosomatic response, or you can have a somatovisceral response. That means if the muscle is really tight, it can be affecting the way the organ works. The subluxation can be affecting the way that the organ works. And you say, wait a minute. What are you saying? What'd you just say to me? That my heart might not function properly because I've got a dime's weight of pressure on my nervous system? That's exactly what I said to my brother-in-law 24 years ago. I said, what are you talking about? That a dime's weight of pressure can interfere with the signal going from my heart to my brain or from my brain to my heart. And he was like, yes, that's 100% true. And I was like, you mean that that's the reason that I get adjusted? And he's like, yes, that's the reason that you get adjusted. I remember it like it was yesterday. And all of a sudden, it was just like this aha moment. It was this aha moment that, like, wow, like this. What about the liver? What about the spleen? What about the intestine? What about the quadricep muscle? What about the hamstring muscle? What about the calf muscle? How about the bone structure? Which part of your body is not innervated? Which part of your body does your brain not know about what's going on? Right? Yes. So, what do you're saying that the bones, if the bones aren't functioning properly, then it may change the way that the nerves are firing. And yes, that's what we said. We said that last night or night before last. We were breaking down Christopher Kent's article, the In Research and Reviews Neuroscience, heart rate variability to assess the changes in autonomic nervous system function associated with vertebral subluxation. We were subluxated. Our spine is subluxated, which is causing pressure on our nervous system, which is decreasing the input of the afferent information and the efferent information, and our body is going into a state of dis-ease or disorder. We are in a state of breakdown because we're not communicating. Our body's not communicating with itself. And what is that going to do? It's going to cause a symptom. It's going to lead us into some sort of symptom. What symptom would it lead us into? What are the things that it could possibly lead us into? Well, you could pretty much you could pretty much almost pick any symptom you want, because alterations in heart rate variability have been observed in a variety of clinical conditions, including diabetic neuropathy, prediction of the risk of arrhythmia following myocardial infarction, exercise physiology, anorexia nervosa, brain infarction, angina, panic disorders, smoking, and a sedentary lifestyle reduce vagal parasympathetic nerve. Studies suggest that heart rate variability is useful in evaluating multiple sclerosis, eating behaviors, burnout, depression, chronic post traumatic stress disorder, dementia, inflammation and rheumatoid arthritis, insulin resistance, type 1 diabetes, cardiac autonomic nerve function, cancer prognosis, cognition. All those things, all of those things that we can use heart rate variability to see what's kind of going on with a person are symptoms that can be caused from a vertebral subluxation. Getting your nervous system checked isn't popping your back to make you feel good. Getting your nervous system checked is adjusting your nervous system, is adjusting the input, the flow, the nervous system flow that travels from your body to your brain. That's afferent. Anything that afferent, afferent. Afferent information travels from your body to your brain. So if you have disruption, hang on, let me see. I'm getting a text. If you have disruption there, then your body's going to break down. And that's why you get adjusted. Now, if you understand that, and it like I hope so after we've gone over this same thing all week long, if you understand that, you might be thinking to yourself, could my children have this problem? This subluxation problem, this vertebral subluxation problem. What like could my children have this same problem? Because that's the same thing that I asked my brother-in-law. I said, Rick, what do you mean? Could Jacob have this problem? Because Jacob's at home with ear infections, and we gave him antibiotics. And guess what? You're not going to believe this, but the antibiotics didn't stop the ear infections. Like he was a little guy, and he got an antibiotic. He got an ear infection, so we took him to the pediatrician, and they gave him an antibiotic. And then his ear infection kind of went away for a bit. And guess what? He got another ear infection. And so we took him back to the pediatrician, and the pediatrician gave him another antibiotic. So we gave him two antibiotics. Well, then he broke out all over this. He's got thrush in his mouth, and his body reacted to the whole thing. And it was like, um, what, how, okay, well, did how come he got that ear infection in the first place? Was it because of the lack of antibiotics in his bloodstream? No, it wasn't. Were we on the track to go from one to the next to the next to tubes? Yes, we were. And then all of a sudden that night in March of 2000, when I learned that thing with the whole scissors and the bone and the nerve, and I got that when we had that conversation, all of a sudden the light bulb went on. The light bulb went on, and I was like, wow, like, could my son have the same problem? And he was like, yep. And I really could have punched Rick that day. I was ticked off. I was like, dude, why didn't you tell me that? Why didn't you tell me that my kids could be subluxated? And his answer to me was, I thought you knew. And I was like, what? Okay, let me ask you. If you're hearing this for the first time, it would be cool if someone was listening to the show. If you're hearing this for the first time, would you send me a text and say, that's the first time I've ever heard anybody say that? Just put first time on there. Just send me a text, 806-794-0400. Put a message in the chat box. Put a message in the chat box and say, hey, first time. First time anybody has ever explained to me what a vertebral subluxation was and that it might cause some sort of malfunction in my body. Because that was the first time I was like, dude, who is going to teach me that? Nobody teaches us that. Nobody teaches us that our body is firing information into our brain, and our brain is processing that information and keeping our body in order. And if we have disruption in the signal going from our body to our brain and our brain to our body, then our body's not going to function properly. And we're going to end up with some sort of symptom. We're going to end up with a headache. And the headache is absolutely 100% not caused from the lack of Tylenol in the bloodstream. There's never been a headache in the history of mankind that's been caused from not having enough aspirin in your bloodstream. That's not how our bodies work. I did not get acid reflux because I didn't have enough Rolaids in my bloodstream. You did not get acid reflux because of the lack of Nexium. That's not how it works. Your body is in an environment that's incongruent with health. And there's an answer to that. There's an answer to that. Put your body in an environment that's congruent with health. Get your spine checked for vertebral subluxation. And you say, well, who? That's pretty convenient for me, right? It's pretty convenient for me to be a chiropractor. And I get it. I tell you guys all the time, I'm the luckiest dude in town. Like, it's pretty convenient for me that everybody on the planet has a spine, and that the nervous system runs right through the middle of that thing. Your spinal cord is running right through the middle of these vertebrae right there. That's pretty convenient for me as a chiropractor. Hey, I'm not going to apologize for it. Just because I lucked out and I just happened to take care of your nervous system. I'm not your back. I'm not your back pain doctor. Why would I care about your back? The only reason I care about your back is because that's where your spinal cord is. It's running down through the middle of all those vertebrae that cause vertebral subluxation and disrupt the information going from the brain, from the body to the brain, and from the brain to the body. And there's so many articles over and over and over again. There's just so many articles, and that's one of them here that I wanted to share with you tonight. Is we got a new one right here, and this new one is see if I can find it for you and see if I can share it, and maybe you'll So here it is: neck muscle afferents. Let me get it on this other one so I can read it better. Neck muscle afferents influence oromotor, which is the verbal mouth component of how you make words, how you speak, how you talk, how you move your tongue, how you swallow, all that stuff right there. And cardiorespiratory brainstem neural circuits. Neck muscle afferents influence cardiorespiratory brainstem neural circuits. And this comes from the School of Biomedical. This is Brain Structure and Function, March 2014. Comes from the School of Biomedical Sciences at the University of Leeds in the UK. And it's very complicated. It's very complicated, and I'm not going to try to break it all down for you from a verbal standpoint, because it's so complicated that it's really hard for me to explain. But it's not hard. It's not that hard for me to explain. It's hard for you to understand, because the first sentence says the intermedius nucleus of the medulla is a neurochemically diverse perihypoglossal nucleus. Yeah, yeah. You're not going to know that, right? Okay. Hang on one second. It's um, hang on. Yep, we got technical difficulty again with it, but not with you guys. We don't have technical difficulty with you guys. So, neck muscle afferents influence oromotor and cardiorespiratory brainstem neural circuits. The authors investigated whether upper cervical sensory afferents, sensory the feeling that you have in the upper cervical region, upper cervical sensory afferents, signals going from these muscles in this area up into the brain, um, particularly those arising from muscle spindle afferents, mechanoreceptors, and proprioceptors, do indeed influence cardiorespiratory activity. That's what they wanted to know. Cardiorespiratory, your heart and lungs. Does your upper cervical afferents fire and have anything to do with your heart and lungs? Okay. Sensory information arising from upper neck is important in the reflex control of posture and eye position. Sensory information from the upper neck is linked to the autonomic control of the cardiovascular and respiratory systems. Sensory information of your upper neck is linked to the autonomic control of the cardiovascular and respiratory systems. Now, I'm not making that up. I'm not making that as your chiropractor. I'm not making that up. As your health and wellness doctor, I'm not making that up. I'm reading an article that was from Brain Structure and Function in March of 2014. That was Edwards, V.K. Law, J.F. Patton, somebody else, and somebody else from the School of Biomedical Sciences at the University of Leeds. Hey, I'll give it to them. They're breaking it down for you right there. What they're saying is sensory information from the upper neck is linked to autonomic control of the cardiovascular and respiratory system. Whiplash disorders and cervical dystonia often present Whiplash disorders and cervical dystonia often present with abnormalities to the oromotor, respiratory, and cardiovascular systems. Whiplash or cervical dystonia. The tone. Remember what we talked about is the muscle tone. That's what BJ and Dee Dee and those guys talked about. Dee Dee Palmer and them, they talked about that in 1895. There's a certain amount of tone a person should have. You're too tight. Your muscles are too tight. It's just too much tone. Or you're just so flaccid. It's just like um, the your body's just not functioning properly because you got too much tone in that upper cervical region. Because that's what's going to happen to you. The moment that you figure out, the moment that you finally have that aha moment, that light bulb moment that goes off in your head, when you finally figure that out, and I'm not on the radio anymore, so um, we'll just get rid of all this stuff. When you finally figure that out, that you no longer have, or that when the light bulb moment goes off and you realize that subluxation is causing these things for you, one of the questions that you're going to ask yourself, or at least one of the questions that I asked myself, was what causes a subluxation? If whiplash disorders often present with abnormalities to the oromotor, respiratory, and cardiovascular systems, if sensory information of the upper neck is linked to autonomic control of my heart and respiratory system, like asthma, what my asthma is part of my autonomic nervous system function. That's whether or not my lungs are functioning the way that they're supposed to function, right? That whole system right there is tied into the sensory afferents of my upper neck. Well, if they're tied into the sensory afferents of my upper neck, if what that means is the function of my neck is controlling the input into the part of my brain that controls my heart and respiratory system. My question just was immediately, as soon as I got that aha moment, as soon as that aha moment happened, and I got that aha moment, all of a sudden, my question was, well, what causes subluxation? If a subluxation interferes with the way that my heart functions, what causes subluxation? How do I get rid of that? Because I want my heart to function properly. I want my lungs to function properly. How do I get rid of that? And the answer, the old timey guys, Didi and those guys back in the day, they said toxins, trauma, and autosuggestion. Trauma, toxins, and autosuggestion. And we get that. We get the idea that I can fall off a ladder. Bam! I can hit my spine. I can move this position of this bone or the movement of the bone. I can affect the positioning of the bone or the movement of the bone by something physical. Anybody that's ever worked at a computer and sat there and typed at a computer and just for hours over and with your head forward and your body, you get that burn that happens right there at the base of your neck. It just burns back there, right? And so if that's burning back there, it's affecting the muscle. It's the muscle that's burning, and the burning part is affecting the movement of the joint. It's affecting the movement of the joint. And let me break it down this way, right? So if you're affecting the movement of the joint, what Dr. Kent says, if I can get to it, there you go. Chiropractic subluxations are changes in the position or motion of a vertebra which may alter autonomic nervous system activity. That's what that means. So I fell off a ladder, bam, I hit my spine, I knocked my vertebra out of position or out of motion, and now I've disrupted the autonomic nervous system, which might be causing my body not to function properly. That's easy for us to get. It really is. It's really easy for us to get that concept that it's all about physical trauma. I lifted something too heavy. I got in a car wreck. I flipped a four-wheeler. I got bucked off a horse. Whatever our thing was. I sat at a desk for too long. I drove 7 hours this weekend in the truck. I slept in a bed that wasn't my own. Whatever the thing was, right? And what ended up happening at the end of that time was I didn't have. I had some sort of physical trauma that caused my body not to function the way it was supposed to. Okay, that's physical stress. That's that trauma that Didi and those guys were talking about. Okay, what physical, chemical? That's the part that's the part which just so hard for us to grasp. The idea of chemical stress, the idea of paint thinners, insecticides, pesticides, cleaning materials, inks, glues, partially hydrogenated oils, high fructose corn syrups, artificial colors and sweeteners, perfumes, deodorants, metals, heavy metals of some kind in these things. All of those things are chemical stresses to the body. All of those things cause interference in the nervous system function of the body. It's the same exact thing. The physical, the chemical, and then the mental emotional. And the mental emotional is firing in the pattern of the right hemisphere to the left hemisphere. It's that right hemisphere overactivation that we're firing, and we've got that amygdala down on that lower side. I promise you, Didi and those guys didn't know that. They didn't know the neuroscience and the firing pattern of that whole process. But the physical, chemical, and mental emotional stresses is what causes the subluxation, and the subluxation is what causes the body to break down. It interferes with the nervous system, with the function of the body. So that's what we're really trying to do, and we're trying to help you live a better life by detecting and addressing your subluxations. And I have taken the vertebral subluxation complex and moved it into just subluxation because that makes a whole lot more sense to me personally. It makes way more sense to me to call it just subluxation because subluxation can be brain, and ultimately it's all brain. It's not subluxation in my wrist. It's not so much it's not the subluxation in my wrist, meaning the 8 bones that are in my wrist, plus my hand bones, plus my 2 arm bones, if they're not proper, they are causing some sort of abnormal input from the nervous system into the brain. And there we go. Now it's back in the brain again. So I like to call it, and it's not vertebral. That's not a vertebral subluxation if your wrist is subluxated. If your knee is subluxated, if your ankle is subluxated, that's not vertebral subluxation, but it is subluxation. It is interference in your nervous system. It is a change in afferent and efferent output of the nervous system. It is a change in the activity of the brain. And that's what this article is saying. It's going to get down there. And when it talks about in animal experiments, and it talks about all this sort of thing, electrical stimulating nerve afferents of the C2 nerve alters the pattern of the central respiratory drive and increases perfusion pressure. Now that's complicated, but it's saying that when you change that, if you electrically stimulate that nerve firing pattern, you're going to alter the physiology of the body. You're going to change the way the body functions. Tracing these C2 sensory afferents shows projections to the intermedius nucleus of the medulla, and the evidence indicates that they are proprioceptive. What does that mean? It just means that it's firing into your brainstem now. Like it's changing. C2 nerve afferents alter function or influence function in your brainstem, which means that you're going to have function of your cerebellum, which is balance, coordination, and posture, which means that you're going to have altered function in some form or fashion of your cortex, which is the upper part of the brain, which means that you're going to have altered function of the right side and the left side of the brain with a C2 subluxation. Like it's got to all map. I mean, it's the last page of this, and I'll show it to you. I mean, that's what I'm talking about right there, and it's a little bit hard to see, but and I can blow it up this way. But this is the mechanoreceptors from C1 to C3, and where they're firing in the vestibular nucleus. The vestibular nucleus is the part of the brainstem that's receiving information from your vestibular system, which is your balance and the whole vertigo thing that's going on, right? We got eye position. We've got how you're actually getting focused on something for clarity. You've got the phrenic nerve for respiration activity and inspiratory activity. C4, C5, C6 motor neurons. You're getting the sympathetic nervous system, autonomic innervation from the viscera, most of the sympathetic nerves. All of this stuff is firing these mechanoreceptors, which is firing into this nucleus intermedius, which is going to the cranial nerve 7, cranial nerve 5, oral facial, oral motor control. It's going into the hypoglossal nerve, which now you're going to get into all your swallowing and your tongue function and all that sort of thing. Tongue, swallowing, airway patency, the nucleus ambiguous, you get into the soft palate, the whole thing, right? You see how this is coming from C1 to C3 mechanoreceptors. The C1 to C3 vertebra firing into that particular part of the brain, firing into those different areas of the brain. That's what a subluxation is all about. A subluxation is ruining your life. Like a subluxation is really, really altering your health. I'm not making that up. I didn't invent any of this. That's what I told one patient today. I was like, it's the cool thing about this whole wellness thing is I didn't invent this. I'm just saying, and that's why it's like I listen to people talk. I listened to Dr. Huberman talk one time, and someone asked him about what about chiropractic, and he's like, "Well, I'm just not real sure about that." And it's just like it's not real. There's not real much science to it, and all this sort of thing. And I'm like, that is ridiculous. And I love Dr. Huberman, but it's ridiculous. I heard Joe Rogan say the same thing. He's like saying something about went to a chiropractor one time, it was a bunch of quackery and all that sort of thing. Like, dude, seriously, like, absolutely ridiculous. When you say that out loud, you really don't know what you're talking about. And I'm not talking trash. I think Joe Rogan's done a great job with his life. Like he's freaking popular, and he does. And I watch his show, and I think it's great. But he doesn't know. It's like, look, you talked to the wrong guy. I went to a book club one time, and they were talking about Jesus, and I was listening to him bash Jesus and bash the church and all this sort of thing. And after a little while, I just asked him. I was like, "Where did y'all learn about Jesus?" Because the person you're talking about, the Jesus that you're talking about, I don't know that guy. That's not the Jesus that I learned about. This whole thing, all that stuff that you're saying about him is like, where did you learn that information? Where did you get your Jesus education? Because whoever gave you your Jesus education led you astray. And I think the same thing goes on with chiropractic all the time. It's like all the time. It's just like that just leads you astray. Like, dude, I don't have to argue about it. I don't have to feel defensive about it. I don't have to get into some sort of argument because of it. It's like, dude, it's just science. There's C1 mechanoreceptors fired into your brainstem. It's not. I didn't make that up. We're getting this from these boys at the University of Leeds. They're the ones that's talking about this whole thing. Physiological studies are consistent with the notion that cervical sensory afferent influence autonomic function. If you're subluxated at C2, you're not going to function properly. And now you might have a heart problem. And you can go to a cardiologist, and I guarantee you, I'll bet you $1,000. I'll bet you $10,000. You're going to go to a cardiologist, and that cardiologist is never going to look to see if you've got subluxation at C2. They're never one time going to ever mention that to you. Matter of fact, most of them will tell you that when you tell them you're going to get adjusted or you're going to see a chiropractor, they'll look at you like you're some sort of idiot, and they'll be like, "Why would you do that?" And what you should tell them is because C2 mechanoreceptors fire into the brainstem and cause problems in the cardiorespiratory system. Run that back and memorize that. That would be a great one right there. Run that one back and memorize that, and you'll be like, um, it would be great, right? So, hey, that's what I had for you tonight. I wanted to talk about the subluxation. I wanted to talk about Rick. You know, he maybe pass away by the time this show's over. It's so disappointing. But I learned this 24 years ago. 24 years ago, he got a pair of scissors and he got a spine model, and he told me that whole thing. Now he didn't have the luxury of all these articles that we have now, and neither did Didi Palmer in 1895, which people talk trash about him, tell him some sort of fish salesman or all that sort of thing. It's like, whatever, dude. He stumbled on one of the most amazing things in the history of the planet, the vertebral subluxation complex and the interference in the nervous system. And that's what chiropractors that really understand what they're doing, that's what they do. They detect and correct subluxations, and that's what I do all day long. And a subluxation is caused from physical, chemical, and mental emotional stress. So we spend all day long trying to work on improving our ability to adapt to physical, chemical, and mental emotional stresses. And if we can do that, we can improve our health. And we can live 24 years and have one Tylenol in 24 years. And that's just a less of a load that goes to our liver, which is something that we don't have to worry about. If that's something that inspires you, if that's something that interests you, and you want to know, Jason, do I have that? Could I have vertebral subluxation? Could I have this interference in my nervous system? Is there anything you can do to help me? Call me. Send me a message. Reach out to us. Send us a chat. Call the office, 806-794-0400. Let us help you. Let us improve your health. Let us get you off all those medications that are killing you and get you back on to health. And it doesn't matter how old you are, you can regain your health and you can improve your health. You can be healthier next year than you are right now. And what you just work on your physical, chemical, and mental emotional stresses. Eat well, move well, and think well, as Dr. Chestnut says. Just improve the way that your body is functioning by trying to improve on those three things, and then get your nervous system checked for vertebral subluxation and get adjusted and remove that and let your body fire the way it's supposed to, and you will improve your health. It's that simple. Hey, thanks for your time. Sorry this thing is rocky. I've been getting all these texts from these guys on the Bob and Ken, or they're behind the scenes trying to figure out all this trouble that's going on with the radio station. Hopefully we get that worked out. But we probably, more than likely, I know tomorrow is but I don't know 100% sure if we're going to do a show tomorrow night. I'll let you guys know. I'll post it sometime tomorrow and let you know if we're going to do a show, and then we'll just kind of go from there. So we're not going to see patients tomorrow or Friday in the office, and I'm not exactly sure what we're planning to do. So you guys have a happy 4th of July, and God bless America and all the people that keep that thing running. So I hope you guys have a great night, and let us know. Thanks for watching the show, and we will talk to